Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning right now and there's something that happened in my professional life that I wanted to share with you that is not always the best news to share. And so instead of just posting stuff that's like fun and fresh and everybody's happy about, sometimes things in life happen that kind of take you down a notch and set you back. And so that's what happened with me, and I wanted to share that with you, and maybe this might help or maybe not, I don't know, but it's worth sharing and worth talking about because it definitely affects everyone at some point in their life or in their career. You just gotta kind of figure things out as you go. And what I'm talking about is, just backing up for a second, as many viewers know, I am a contract illustrator and designer, and I have a lot of clients that I work for. Some are bigger and some are smaller. For example, I have a small client that just contacted me. They need me to design a small ad for them for some, I'm not even sure what they're going to use it for, but it goes into some bulletin or something like that. So that's a little tiny project that'll take me a couple of hours, and it's a one and done kind of thing. But then there's other clients I have where I work on site or I work at home, and they're bigger clients, and these are people that I've been working for years. And these are my bread and butter clients. These are the clients that pay my bills, and they're the kind of clients that you want to make happy. And that's generally what I try to do, is make these clients happy. These are people that I've worked with for years, and you know, you're part of the team is what it comes down to. However, sometimes at those companies, there are changes, there are restructures. People get laid off or fired or quit or retire or whatever. And that's when it's sort of out of your control of what happens next. And that's what happened to me recently. Was a large company that I've been working for many years had a restructure, and they lost their marketing director. They lost just a bunch of people that were in the uppers of who you would speak to or who you would work with as far as getting new work. And so while some people remained, and I was glad to see they kept their jobs, a lot of people resigned and a lot of people were let go. So unfortunately, that company has gone through a big shakedown and there's been some big changes. But what does that mean for me? That means I unfortunately have lost that client because their restructure said, okay, we're going to clean house on all contracts, and some of the people that I've worked with, the designers and artists, are no longer there. So they're going to probably either take their creative resources to someone else and outsource it, bring in either new contractors, or go to an agency or a design agency or something. I'm not sure what they're going to do. All I know is what it means to me, and that means that I no longer am working for this big company, and all the projects that I had on the plate were put on hold and eventually just canceled and stopped. All the requests for whatever files or designs or anything that I had were sent back to that company, and I can delete them from my computer if I want. I'll hold on to them for a while, but I'll get rid of them. So what I wanted to talk about, and that's what the point of this video is the different thought processes and the emotional reactions that you go through when you lose a big client. So let's talk about this and more, and just the aspects of a career in the arts right after this coffee break. So yeah, it's pretty jarring. It's a shocking reality when you lose a big client, and you have to really look at what happened. In some cases, you have to say, okay, was it something that I did? Did I do something wrong? Was I late? Was I not keeping up with the work? Was I not meeting my deadlines? Did I maybe tick somebody off? I don't know. Fortunately, that wasn't the case this time, and I'm grateful for that. It does happen where those situations happen where you might, you know, send an email that just rubbed somebody the wrong way, and you didn't mean to, but it did, and you could end up losing your contract that way. But this was a case where obviously a restructure happened, and it wasn't in my control, and it was nothing to do with me, but it affects me dramatically. And the first thing you think of when I got the email about what was going on, which reacted, you know, for me to react was to call people and start just finding out what happened. But the first thought that goes through my mind, or went through my mind, was money. Money, that's the whole thing. And I'm a professional artist and designer, and that's what I've been doing for 30 years. And that big client that was, you know, paying my bills all of a sudden isn't there anymore. And that paycheck that I rely on every month is no longer going to come in. So what do you do? And my mind starts wandering like, okay, now I got to go back on LinkedIn. I got to go back on social media, try to reach out for new connections, get references, get everything together. And there's a whole process, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I did want to talk about is sort of just like the 5 stages of what you go through when you lose a big client like this. And it doesn't even have to be a big client. It could be a job, or it could be a relationship. It could be many, many things that this affects. So I wanted to share this with you guys, and maybe you can relate and maybe you can't. I don't know. But there are ways to deal with certain things and how they come about. And just starting off, these are what I call the 5 stages of reaction or whatever. I'm not even sure how to even label these. But the first reaction that I had in this situation is disbelief and denial. And when I got the email, when I first got the email, I read it and I said, geez, wow. And I wasn't sure what to think. So I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I was just not prepared to get that kind of information. So the next stage was denial. And I said, well, this can't be right. This got to be something I can do. And so I immediately got on the phone and started calling people, started sending emails and texts, and said, okay, contacting the right people and asking, what's going on? How does this affect me? And is there a way around this? Is there a loophole that says, hey, they still need someone? So am I going to be included in this, this restructure as somebody who's going to be a resource? Am I going to continue to be that freelance resource that they can turn to get work done? And the answer was no. And, once you hit that stage of denial, it's like once you get that information that confirms your fears, it goes into the next stage, which is anger and anxiety. And so that's when the stress comes in, and you start looking at things and saying, okay, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to do? And then you get angry. You're like, well, why didn't somebody give me some warning? Why didn't anybody tell us about this? And in a relationship, if this happens, there's anger toward the other person, resentment. And so all these emotions and things start brewing up inside of you, and you start dealing with, what am I going to do now? And that's where the anxiety kicks in. And that kind of pushes into the next phase, which is panic and self-doubt. And that's what starts happening. It's like, okay, I've been working for this particular company for many years. Am I capable of going out and getting another contract like this, especially at my age right now? Am I able to go out and get another contract this good and this big and be successful? And is that going to happen for me? I don't know. And all of a sudden, this self-doubt kicks in and you panic. And I remember I was sitting there reading the email and I was starting to sweat. And it's one of those things where it's completely out of your control. Now, if you apply this to a relationship or just a regular job or anything, you find that it's the same kind of stages you go through. You go through that disbelief and denial when someone says, hey, I'm not into you anymore, and I think we should split up or not see each other. And then you go through the anger and anxiety of like, oh my God, I've invested my time and my heart into this other person, and all of a sudden now they're telling me it's over. I'm angry and I'm feeling anxious about it. And then panic and self-doubt. You start questioning yourself. What did I do wrong? What was my, fault in all this? And you start asking all these questions. And what happens is at some point you kind of hit this bottom level. And that's what happened with this situation for me was you hit a bottom level. And you do that in relationships too. You hit this point where you say, okay, I've accepted the situation. I understand the situation. Now I have to change the situation. Now, some people give up right there. They say, okay, well, there's nothing I can do, so I'm going to sit around and flounder for a while, and I'm just going to give up. That's not the way to do it, because what happens is after the panic and self-doubt kicks in, you go into this other sort of stage, which is this motivation and preparation phase, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm actually at that point where I am kind of not sleeping well because my brain is overworking, and I get up early, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I start immediately hitting the pavement, sort of, as far as the internet goes, and looking for other resources and see where my next venture is going to come from. So I start inspiring myself, and I start talking and writing, and I keep a journal, a personal journal, and I write down, okay, what are my next steps? What are my new ideas? How am I going to get the next client? Who would I want to work for? Where is my work going to benefit another company. So all these different things come into your mind and you say, okay, I gotta start. I gotta just jump back in. And, I'm trying to think when I started with this company. It was probably about 6 years ago or so. And now I got to go backwards to 6 years and remember, how did I get this client, and who was the contact that introduced me to that client? And, that's what I have to start doing again, is networking and getting back into the flow of talking to people, finding out who needs work, what companies are sort of lacking and they need some marketing assistance. And then you start preparing. So that motivation and preparation phase really kicks you in the butt and says, okay, I don't want to just, lay down and fade away. I don't want my career to stagnate and just turn into something else. I want to make sure that I'm on top of this. And that's what happens in a relationship too. You say, okay, I'm hurt, I've been devastated, or maybe you're the one who actually did the breaking up or moving away or whatever. And you get to that point where you say, okay, I have to get back up and start again. And I want to start seeing other people again. I want to, get my life back in order. And I know for a lot of people that go through health issues, these 5 stages are sort of the same thing. And you go through disbelief and denial when you're diagnosed, and you go through anger and anxiety of, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I've been diagnosed with this or that or whatever. Panic and self-doubt, like, am I strong enough to get through this? How am I going to get through this? But then that point comes again where motivation and preparation kick in, and you start saying, okay, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to do whatever I can to get back on the horse and ride. And I'm not going to settle down and just, say, okay, let the steamroller come over me. I'm going to prepare myself to get back up and fight and get back into the game and do whatever I have to do to survive. And that's what I think the motivation and preparation phase is. It's a survival mode. And that when that kicks in, it's like you're on a bucking bronco, because you just want to get right back up and go again. And that goes into the 5th stage, which is action, what I call action and contact. And you start putting together your resumes. You start putting together a plan. I put together presentations, just very short presentations in PowerPoint of the work I do and why I benefit other companies and how I can benefit your company. And my presentations are brief, but they're right to the point. And it's one of those things that you then assemble your contact list. You find those contacts who you can reach out to and say, hey, I'm available. I have the ability to work with you. I've done it before with these other companies and I've been successful with it. And I really think that my services can benefit you as well. And so you put that in a presentation. About 98% of the time, you either don't hear back or you just get no thank you. But there is that slight 2% chance that someone will say, let me try you out. And it might start off with a simple ad that somebody, calls you up and says, hey, we just need a little spot ad, black and white. And then that person might call back in a couple of weeks and say, hey, we have a bigger project and we'd like to bring you on board for it. We saw some other projects you've done, so we'd like to bring you on board for that. So that's what happens. And eventually you start building back up again. Now, the problem is if you don't, losing a big client like I just lost, if you don't replace that client with another sort of equal client, then you have to start thinking financial stuff and saying, okay, I was making X amount of dollars every month from that one client. Well, now I need 5 clients to make up for that one, or 10 clients to make up for that one. And it can be a ton of footwork, and it's really, really scary. And that's the phase that I just came through, was the fear factor, the whole, what am I going to do here? How am I going to recover from this? How am I going to pay for all the stuff that my family needs and wants? And how are we going to do this? And fortunately, I have the other clients, and that's not going to be so devastating. But this was the big client that I relied on every month. And I always knew that this could come. This is not a big super shock. It's the life of a contract designer and illustrator, is that nothing is guaranteed. And that's like relationships, nothing is guaranteed. It's like your health, nothing is guaranteed. And with a job, whether you're working a full-time job as a, it doesn't matter, whatever, whatever job you work at, nothing's guaranteed. Anything can change and anything can happen at any time. And knowing that ahead of time and planning for that, that's the best way to go. However, sometimes you can't plan for it. It's like when your car all of a sudden has issues. You can't plan for that. And when you get a bill for, $1,000 to $2,000 to fix your car, nobody expects those bills to come, but they do. And so that's where a lot of the fear and a lot of the panic and anxiety comes from with losing a big client, is that, okay, what if something else happens in my life? But that's pretty much what happened. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to collect all the resources that I had from that position, from that contract that I had, the names and contacts of people that also were let go or laid off or their contracts were discontinued. I will collect all the information on those people and reach out to them and say, hey, I'm sorry to see what happened. I'm sorry to hear that you were let go or you were restructured and, you put somewhere else, or that you're a contractor and your contract was cut and canceled or whatever. You reach out to those people, you say, hey, I'm in the same boat. And that's the first step of networking is, okay, if you hear something, let me know. If you need something, let me know. And we can work together and we can rebuild and find something new. That's been probably the biggest way that I've recovered from these kind of situations in the past. That's how I'll recover from this going forward. And, just preparing my portfolio again, making sure all my work is up to speed and looking good. And, I'll probably have to go back and just tool out my website again. And, I got a lot of junk on my website that I haven't been able to attend to. It's kind of like being the cobbler and, your kids are wearing, grubby shoes. But I've got to get back to my website and sort of retool that again and see where I can clean it up, and just to present myself in a new, fresh light. And that's kind of what it is. You gotta get yourself back up, polish yourself up, and get the dust off and say, okay, I gotta get uncomfortable. I gotta get in a position where I need to find something. And so I'm motivated and I'm hungry and I'm aggressive. And it's hard to go from that comfortable place to that aggressive place overnight. So it's a progression. And like I said, these 5 stages that you go through, or that I go through anyway, of just dealing with this new situation will help me to get back up, polish myself up again, clean up my work, be ready to present myself. And when I do finally meet that new client, it's going to be, one of those things where it's great and it's going to be a healthy relationship. But again, it could change within a very short time, or it could be years. You never know. So preparation is key. So anyway, I just wanted to share this conversation with you. I hope you're doing well, and I hope things are going well in your life. I am fine. I will recover from this. This is pretty much par for the course as far as being a professional illustrator or designer, but it hurts, it stings, and you have to rethink everything. And it hasn't happened for a long time for me. I've been very fortunate in my career, but it does happen. So if you lose a big client, if you go through a breakup in a relationship, if you get some bad news about your health or even your car or your home, it's the kind of thing where you go through these 5 stages. Once you reach the action and contact phase, that's when you just pull out the stops and you just go forward to get things done. And that's what I'm doing now. So have a great morning. It's now that I've been talking for a while, it's probably about 5:30 or so. So have a great day and keep being creative, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, and God bless.